So, according to popular belief, the gays have an agenda to make everybody else around them gay as well. Hi, I am Zoe Stoller, for those who don't know me. My pronouns are she, they, and that little piece of information that I shared at the very beginning was actually misinformation. A myth, shall we say, because the gays don't have any agenda other than just being our fullest, most authentic selves and living life in a happy and fulfilling way. And I don't know, that should be the agenda for everybody, I think. But this is what we're going to be talking about today. Some of these myths and pieces of misinformation that are spread about the LGBTQ community and understood by many people as fact when it's really fiction. So if you've seen my content on TikTok and Instagram, you've probably seen that I actually do a whole series called Debunking LGBTQ Myths. But I wanted to bring it here to this longer form of video as well, because those 30-second videos that I make really obviously can't cover the whole breadth of truth about the LGBTQ community. I can only be, a quick snippet of truth. So I'm so happy to have this opportunity to talk more about debunking these myths. When I had put a poll in my story asking y'all what content you wanted to see, this was the top choice. So here we are. Welcome to Debunking LGBTQ Myths with Zoe Stoller. Also, I am wearing my Crash the System shirt. Woohoo! And this is from a new store called It's Perfectly Queer, which is run by Janny and Corbin. So I'm going to link this down below for those who would like a shirt just like this and many, many other options. So check out that. And now, without further ado, let's debunk some LGBTQ myths. Myth number 1. Everybody knows their LGBTQ identities from a young age. I wish, honestly, I wish, because I didn't know that I was, various LGBTQ identities until I was in my 20s. I didn't know I was a lesbian until I was 20, and then I realized that I'm also gender fluid when I was 23. And then this past year, at age 25, I realized that I also have identities under the asexual and aromantic umbrellas. So the answer to that myth is a resounding no. LGBTQ people discover their identities at all ages. And ideally, again, we would discover them when we were younger, because in theory, we would understand that being LGBTQ is just as valid an option as, being straight in this world. But that's really not the case, unfortunately. And that's due to something called compulsory heterosexuality. And this really stems from the fact that heterosexuality is the norm in society. This is what is presented to us as the absolute truth, the only option in a lot of cases. And thus a lot of people try to really fit themselves into that box, not realizing that that is not the only option out there and that they might feel more comfortable in another box or not having a box altogether. And that was definitely the case for me. I believe myself to be the straightest of straight women when I was growing up, but obviously that is, no, I am not. I'm not even a woman, let alone straight woman. So I was very, very misguided about that, but because of compulsory heterosexuality, because I grew up being given the narrative that I am a girl, I'm a woman, and thus I should be with men, and I should have boyfriends, and blah, 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 blah. I should do all these things, So many of us are kind of given these pre-prescribed understandings of what our lives should look like, or who we should love, or how we should act or dress, and then we follow that, because what else are we supposed to do? That's the message that's given to us. But what ends up happening for so many people is they grow up and they realize that these messages and these ways of living actually aren't most conducive to their authentic selves. This isn't really who they are. And again, this was the case for me. I realized all these kind of boxes and constraints that I was putting myself into were not actually me. They were not serving me, and I was not happy living in this life as a false version of myself. Of course, at the time I didn't know it was false, but I knew I wasn't happy. But since discovering my LGBTQ identities, again, later in life, in my 20s, I've had the chance to kind of rework my life and be who I want to be. But I think it's really important to note that there's no deadline or timeline for that. There are lots of people who discover their LGBTQ identities at age 30 or 40 or 80 even. There's no correct timeline. And we don't always know our identities at a young age. And that's not our fault. That's just the fault, I'd say, of larger society for not providing us more options than just, heterosexual and cisgender norms. All right, myth number 2. You cannot change your labels. That is definitely not a correct one, but still one that I've heard perpetuated a lot, especially within the LGBTQ community. A lot of people think that once you've decided who you are, for example, a lesbian, that's what I am, that you then cannot change that. You have to be firm in that, otherwise people will think you're making it up, or you didn't understand yourself, or whatever these things are. But that's really just not true. Sexuality and gender and everything about life really is so fluid. It's so full of potentials for changing and opportunities for growth and all these beautiful things that we don't usually understand within the context of identity. But first of all, you might want to change your labels because you got older or wiser and realized that a label that you were using didn't serve you best and there was something else out there that felt better. You might also literally just have a sexuality or gender or identity that changes and is fluid. And that's super valid as well. I mean, I'm gender fluid, and so my gender inherently changes. And I use kind of the term gender fluid or non-binary as an overall umbrella, but if I wanted to be specific about it, I would be changing my gender label every, however often it feels different for me. So there's nothing wrong with changing your labels. You don't have to feel strictly rigid and stuck within what you're saying, because the whole purpose of labels and really understanding yourself within the LGBTQ community in general is knowing that life is more open than kind of the strict boxes that we put ourselves in. And so if your, LGBTQ label functioned as yet another strict box, then that's not the goal of this. That's not the purpose of the LGBTQ community and of you having a label. You choosing your labels is supposed to make you feel affirmed and validated and part of a larger community, not stuck within something that might not suit you anymore. All right, myth number 3. All trans people have body dysphoria. All right, this one's false, of course. All these are false. But I'm going to quickly explain what body dysphoria is before getting into kind of the deeper levels of this one, because not everybody knows. So body dysphoria is an experience that many transgender people have, but of course, not everyone has to have, where your physical body doesn't really match your internal sense of who you are, and that part does not really match how people then perceive you. And so it can lead to a lot of distress, mental health issues, and many, many discomforts. And a lot of people who are trans try to, ease their dysphoria through taking hormones or having surgery or changing their style or really any other approach. But not every trans person has this body-based dysphoria. They might have other types of dysphoria, like based in, social experiences or their name or other things, but you don't have to dislike your body in order to be trans. I mean, I myself, I'm trans, I'm gender fluid, as I said, and I am perfectly content with my body as is. I am interested in potentially going on like a low dose of testosterone in the future, potentially, but that's not really necessary for me to be trans. You don't have to medicalize or change your body or be, or dislike your body in any way in order to be trans. You're valid exactly as is, because being transgender is more than just about your outer physical appearance. It's about your internal understandings of self as well. And if you're trans, with whether this is a binary trans identity or a non-binary trans identity, there's still no right way to look like who you are. And so you can look like your assigned gender at birth or any other gender, but still be trans. And even if you experience no dysphoria at all, you're still trans. As long as you connect with the label transgender and feel that you yourself are trans, you are trans. And really, that's the case with so many identities. As long as you connect to the word and you feel that you're part of it, you don't have to prove yourself in any other external way. You are who you say you are, and that is beautiful. All right, so that's the last myth that I'm going to debunk in this video. But I have so many other LGBTQ myths where that one came from, so I'm going to be making future videos like this. So definitely stay tuned, and if you have any other ideas for what you would like to see in these videos, please comment them below, because I love creating my content based on what you want, because my goal is to serve you and provide the education and visibility and resources that would be most helpful to you. So again, I am Zoe Stoller, at Zoe Stoller on all social media platforms. Be sure to follow me, and I have links to all of that below. I hope that you found this video helpful, and if you did, please consider subscribing down below, because you'll get to see all the future videos that I make, and you can also click the notification bell so you can be notified when I have a future video like this. And with that, I will say adieu. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll talk to you soon.